Hello and welcome to the postcard view of Viking Bay in south-east England, famed for its murky past as a smuggler's port, but also with more noble associations as Charles Dickens's seaside retreat.
But today it's the inspiration for 8 aspiring artists. Yet with only 4 hours to complete their landscape, will they meet our great expectations and impress our mutual friends?
Or will they fall on hard times? It's Sky Art's Landscape Artist of the Year.
We've travelled the length and breadth of Britain to find stunning and inspiring views for our artists.
I think as an artist, I try and capture something of the character of the place, something of the atmosphere.
How do you make a boat sit in the water?
It's the way you paint them. It's the
way you paint them.
It's the way you
and on
paint
that
them.
bombshell, Lynn.
From hundreds of artworks submitted, just 8 artists have been selected to take part in each heat. Today, half our artists are professionals. Lynn Wixon, Charlotte Ashley Halton-Davis, Paul Alcock and Jen Orpin.
I didn't sleep very well at all, but hopefully the nerves and excitement will carry me through the day.
They're joined by our 4 amateur artists, Gary Spencer, Barry Westcott, Krina Amin and Katie Rundle.
Being able to produce something that's vaguely recognisable as a landscape today is the main aim.
As always, our artists will work under the discerning eye of our 3 judges. Award-winning artist Tai Shan Schierenberg, independent curator Kathleen Soriano, and art historian Kate Bryan.
I know I won't be looking for the sun in your picture.
You won't find the sun in my picture, no.
Resistance.
They're all competing for a £10,000 commission from the Imperial War Museum to mark the centenary of the First World War armistice by creating an artwork inspired by the landscape of a forgotten battlefield.
As well as our 8 competitors, we've invited 50 wildcard artists to try their hand at the view and endeavour to reach the next stage of the competition. All of our artists are vying for a place in the semi-final.
So you're telling me that you didn't practice to a 4-hour period?
Oh, I did, but I didn't ever achieve it.
OK.
Before the challenge starts, the artists prepare for the day ahead.
I've never really painted in front of people. It's completely outside of my comfort zone.
I'm very competitive, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to sort of stab anybody in the back or tip coffee on the paintings while I'm doing it, but I want to win.
There's no point everybody being here unless they want to have a go at winning, really, because it's a competition.
With painting, you can have a fantastic couple of hours in the last half an hour. That's the deal, isn't it?
All of the heat artists have been selected on the strength of a digital submission. And now the judges can examine the original artworks.
Well, welcome to the wall. The first picture we look at is quite obscure.
Well, it's entirely abstract. A really, really subtle use of colour. So really, you think you're looking at a big black scene, and then you start looking at it a bit longer, and the yellow emerges, the blue, the red.
And it's quite an interesting picture to sort of illustrate how we see the world in contrast, light and dark. But the colours used really sing.
This is, in a sense, not challenging at all, which isn't to demean it, but to say that it's very clearly what it is.
What they've done is something almost quite photographic with paint, which is that it just sort of, it all sharply sits in the place it needs to sit in.
The best part of it, I think, is the sky and the smokiness of that ridge that runs along the background.
A city landscape at night.
I think it's really, really ingenious, and it gives you such a strong narrative.
You're taken ultimately to this sort of sad void where you've got the netting.
Fantastic idea to pick something so mundane and to make something interesting and sort of mysterious out of it.
This is one of those pieces that it's just so great to get to see in the flesh, because we had no idea really of the scale and the intricacy of this sort of obsessive detail. It's this really, really labour-intensive creation.
It's just really well put together.
What an abundance of colour for an English landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone who knows how to really tell a story with colour, fantastic aerial perspective, it's really convincing the sense of distance.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can't lose with a pier, because I absolutely adore piers. So,
yeah, I think we're always sort of drawn to the idea of the sort of the Victoriana pier going to crumble into the sea.
What I especially like are those ghostly steps on the left-hand side.
But they should absolutely nail it today. We couldn't have given them a better location.
this is fabric, and it's a tearaway piece of work, isn't it?
And a little bit bonkers, actually. I mean, the level of imagination to create those clouds.
It's fantastical, but descriptive.
Yeah. Yeah, my inner hippie rejoices. I think it's just, it's fabulous.
Right, we come down to earth here.
I think it's fantastic in how gloriously boring it is.
That light, the way it bounces on the car bonnet, but also in the reflections of the windows in the shop, it shows observation.
The artists have just 4 hours to capture this view.
I don't have a plan. No, maybe I should have thought about that.
I'm very ready to get going. I haven't got a strategy. It'll be great. What could possibly go wrong?
Artist, time and tide wait for no man, or woman for that matter, so get ready.
You have 4 hours to create your maritime masterpiece, starting now.
It's just like pretty and ugly combined, because not everything that's ugly is ugly, if you know what I mean.
I could perhaps take some photos, but it's a much more fulfilling process to just work straight from the view in front of me.
I don't work outside normally, so this is going to be such a challenge.
The view our artists face today is of Viking Bay, a one-time smuggler's paradise where luxury goods like tea, alcohol and tobacco were dragged ashore and stowed away in the surrounding coves.
I think we want something really evocative of this quite grey day. They're going to struggle because this is such a subdued scene, isn't it? There's no real vividness here.
No, but I think our artists, weirdly enough, divide into 2 camps. You've got those who are slightly sort of fantastical and magical, who are going to imagine no matter what we give them, and then the others are quite sombre and sober in their colour palette.
So we could end up with 2 sets of paintings at the end of the day, which tell a totally different story of this one scene.
I really like this landscape. It's really unlike any landscape I've painted before, because I live in a city. So it's a new challenge for me.
Manchester-based Jen Orpin has been a full-time professional artist for the past 6 years. But she's new to painting outdoors, and her submission piece of a gloomy train station at night was painted from a photograph in her studio.
Jen, it's a very considered start. I mean, some people are throwing paint at their canvases
Yes.
like there's no tomorrow.
This is me, I'm very considered.
You've got a very few small pencil marks.
Yeah. I'll get there.
Yeah, I'm not, listen, I'm not saying you're behind. I like the fact that you're just really taking your time,
Yeah.
very calm.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I sit here all day?
Would you?
Just looking over your
Can
shoulder?
you? Can you? I think you're actually making me feel warmer.
Like that? Why are you doing that?
No, don't do that.
OK.
Each artist has a distinct approach, and they've brought all manner of equipment to help them depict the scene.
I brought an ironing board and an iron, which is a glamorous piece of equipment. I've got my sewing machine and, most importantly, all my fabrics and scissors.
Former Macmillan nurse Katie Rundle is an amateur fabric artist. Her submission of the Durdledore Rock Formation in Dorset took weeks to complete and was one of the first artworks she created after leaving nursing.
My mother was a nurse, my brother's a nurse, I'm a nurse. But I always wanted to do arts. I would always be hanging around the art students, wishing, hoping. So here I am, 35 years later, or whatever it is.
Now, Katie, Macmillan nurses are at the bedsides of the dying.
Yes, yeah.
Was that reassuring? Was that depressing?
Not depressing at all, no. I think it's an absolute privilege. I've always been passionate about end-of-life care, all from when I was a student nurse, so it was a natural thing for me to end up doing, really.
I am concerned about it and how well it works. And it's an amazing discipline, isn't it? I mean, it's absolutely crucial for everyone. And I'm just a bit nearer than most. Now, your technique is entirely original. Can you describe it to me?
Well, it's essentially collage, but with fabric.
It is highly imaginative, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's rather like the illustrations for really gaudy children's books. And I think that's really moving, and it's very joyful.
I think as an artist, I try and capture something of the character of the place, something of the atmosphere of a place. So I like being able to observe all the changes and all the little interactions that come about.
Professional artist Paul Alcock divides his time between painting and teaching. He loves to observe everyday life, and his submission is of an ordinary street on his way to work.
You're blocking in the view with, is it a sort of raw umber?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, a bit of raw umber, yeah.
It's quite a traditional way to start a painting.
Yeah, it is, and I find that it helps the paint look a little bit more fluid.
What we particularly liked about your submission is you paint in this traditional manner, but you found a way of making it contemporary by your subject choice.
I try to paint the things the way I see them. So there is a mixture of old-fashioned things going on, but there's also modern things.
And I must say here, like your submission, you do go for the, can I say the ugly?
I like the blasts of colour, I like the different shapes of the boat, but that's juxtaposed against the darkness of the structures behind the pier and the building.
And you know that we're going to fall into the sea in a couple of hours.
Apparently, yeah, presumably,
so you really need to crack on.
Yeah.
Our 8 heat artists are joined by 50 wildcards who've taken a break from their usual routines to compete for a place in the semi-final.
I edit a magazine called Laundry and Cleaning News, so I've bunked off from that to do this.
I came down yesterday and I stayed in a little B&B, and they very kindly gave me a little pack lunch this morning to come here.
They're battling against the elements to capture the view from Viking Bay harbour.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it, you know? I mean, what could be better than this? I mean, we were right on the edge about 10 minutes ago, and then a wave came over and swamped me. Unbelievable.
I kind of saw this side and I thought it definitely looks more interesting to paint. And I think the wind is just something we're going to have to brave.
The artist who most impresses our judges will get the chance, alongside our other wildcard winners, to win a place at the semi-final.
You're looking at the architecture.
I am.
You've turned away from the beach scene.
Yes, but it's quite an old part of Broadstairs.
But I like the way you've made it look almost like a Mayan temple.
It's finger painting, rolling, anything I can lay my hands on.
Why charcoal? It's nice. No, it's just very different.
One of our artists is capturing a section of the view in meticulous detail using Indian ink.
As an artist, I'd say I try to be a bit a perfectionist, and I like to concentrate on small, tiny, insignificant stuff.
Charlotte Ashley Halton-Davis is a professional artist from Pembrokeshire. Her submission piece of a fallen tree took over 40 hours to complete.
So how's it working out here with the wind blowing and the sand under your feet?
The boats keep on moving, so the perspective's going to be completely out.
Well, Joan and I could get some waders and go out there and try and keep them steady. Would that help?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Now, your submission, I had quite an emotional reaction to it. It seems quite full of feeling.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot going on in my life at that moment, and I definitely lost myself in it.
Has your path as an artist been smooth, or has it been...
Probably far from smooth. I became a single parent at 17, and I had my second son partway through my degree.
So you're trying to do a degree with two very young children?
Yeah.
And you're how old now?
28.
That's a lot of life.
Yeah.
So do you feel art is a salvation for you in
Yeah,
any way?
it's definitely a place where you
escape?
can escape and kind of lose yourself and like enter into a new world.
An hour in, and our artists are getting stuck into the challenge.
I need to start painting in the sky. I was hoping the sun would come out, but I think we're going to stay with grey, so it's going to be a dark grey scene.
Wondering if any steam would help me get this to bond. It's just not doing anything.
I'd like to get the chalk and the seaweed and or like the textures that I think that might be rapidly disappearing.
We're here at Viking Bay in Kent, where our 8 artists are an hour into their 4-hour challenge. And one of them is taking a radical approach.
When I work, I am extremely flamboyant. I move around, I squint my eyes a lot. Yeah, I'm not sure how attractive that's going to be.
Krina is an amateur artist from London. Her passion for painting has to be balanced with a busy career in the city. Since taking up painting, she's been experimenting with styles, and her moody, abstract submission took her 4 hours to complete. Now, your paintings are not representational.
Yeah, they're not. I want people to react to them and feel something, not just sort of look at a pretty picture, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Given that it's a totally abstract painting, what are you looking at and what is it telling you out there?
Yeah, so for me, it's about the sky and the ocean, the murky water, sort of greeny, bluey, but you know, it's almost like yellow actually. It's not even blue at all. So that is what I want to represent.
Now, this is a relatively small painting. Do you work to this size?
No, not really. I've got a relatively big one over there, and then I've done a really tiny sketch right at the start of the day.
It's a tiny
sketch. I know, it's really cute.
Let's have a look
isn't it?
at that.
Oh, ickle.
I have to decide at some point which weather I'm going to go with. As I've not seen the sun come out, I'm going to go with what we've got here.
We're at the seaside.
Yeah.
It's grey, let's be honest. There's no colour, there's no verve, there's no vibrancy. What are you looking for from our artists?
All those things,
All
that, you
those
say,
things
that you just said I'm missing. But
Yeah.
that's the challenge. I mean, the colour of the sea, what colour is that?
Sort of mouldy foot green.
No, it's nicer than that. It's Imperial Jade green.
Imperial Jade?
Yes. A bit of imagination, I think,
Okay,
is
that's
needed
what we're
to
looking for.
Yes, a bit of
We're looking
imagination.
for them to bring something to this scene of interminable blandness.
I think they're artists.
That's what they do.
That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're hoping they're going to do.
Yeah.
What's interesting, since we started this morning, the boats have gone afloat, the tide's coming in,
Yeah.
and things are changing. The sky is promising a little... Well, it
Honestly,
has been promising.
45 minutes is going to be blazing
Yeah,
sunshine.
I believe you when I see it.
I really desperately don't want a blue sky. I want the clouds to stay.
There's one artist who's found vibrancy in today's scene.
I like to start with quite strong colours, basically. And then if I end up even completely grey, it'll still have started with strong colours.
Gary Spencer is an amateur artist from Buckinghamshire. He spends as much time painting as his day job as an art tutor will allow. He describes his style as neither abstract nor representational, but he loves to capture the hallucinatory elements of the landscape.
Gary, I was slightly worried today when we turned up and there were grey skies, and I thought, it sucked the colour out of this scene.
It has, yeah.
I needn't have worried. Look at this.
Yeah. Basically, put the colour back in.
You put the colour back in?
Yeah.
So this hallucinatory, vivid colour, is that the result of a misspent youth?
Yeah, definitely.
Is
yeah.
it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The colours are there now, but it's like a kind of filter I'm putting it on it at the moment. I don't quite know where it's going to go.
Do you paint outside much?
Mostly indoors.
Mostly indoors?
Mostly indoors, yeah, but it's quite exciting to be out and doing it.
Normally you don't have these glorious pods to protect you
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
elements.
exactly. I wouldn't have this with me, no, that's true.
And normally you wouldn't have me standing over your shoulder.
I'm assuming we get to take this away with us at the end.
This is your pod to
Yeah, this
keep?
is mine, thank you. That's great.
I presume.
That's great.
Landscape is absolutely my native environment.
Professional artist Lynn Wixon from Sheffield is passionate about Britain's coastline. She's painted beach scenes all around the country, and her submission painting is of Saltburn Pier in North Yorkshire.
That pier is very special to people that live up there. Everybody's got a memory of it. For me, it's huge, because I moved up after my second husband died very suddenly. So it was a kind of cathartic moment and a bit of a reboot. The project started 7 years ago. I may not finish. I might just keep going.
Morning, Lynn. So you cannot complain about the location we've given you because your submission was a beach scene and a pier.
It's a gift.
So, yeah, you've already had your rehearsal.
I have. Well, it's what I do, and coincidentally, this area is the next leg on my journey.
Oh, wow, so you were due to paint this anyway?
I was due to come here, perhaps not quite so soon.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fantastic. Because I'm very interested here.
Yeah.
Your submission, although we're joking and saying it's like you've done...
It did start like this, it did.
With all this bright colour?
All these bright colours, and then I layer and layer and layer and layer.
So underneath, if I was to X-ray your submission, like an old Leonardo, I would find these kind of bright pinks?
You would.
Wow.
And it would have been started with these.
You know these are for maths, right?
Are they?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that's what they were for.
No, they're not a painter's tool, but I like your implementation.
They work really well. I'm sure I get more use out of them than a mathematician.
Yeah, I haven't touched one of those since school.
No, do you know what it's called? Neither do I.
No, there we go.
I wish it was sunny. It's not, I mean, the lighting is not, you wouldn't come here and think, this is a beautiful day to paint because it's a bit grey. I'll adapt.
Barry Westcott, a care worker from the Isle of Man, has no formal art training and only gets the chance to paint a few times a year. He loved the bright light and contrast of the view in his submission painting and achieved a high level of detail using his distinctive technique.
Barry, I don't think I've ever seen anyone hold a brush like that before. What do you call that?
Hereditary.
Hereditary?
My dad held a pen like that, and my daughter holds a pen like that.
But it's a paintbrush.
Yeah.
But how, I mean, don't you just hold it normally? Have you tried holding it normally?
Don't like it. It's just natural. It's not something I chose to do. It's just the way it works.
I suppose it's all about how you learn, isn't it? But I can see that you're already starting to get the same textures here as you did in your submission, that sort of smokiness.
Yeah.
And you've done really well on that colour, actually. It's a very particular colour, the water here,
Yeah.
because of the chalky soil.
It's sort of a greeny, orangey, bluey.
Is it very important to you to have that sort of foreground, middle ground, background?
Well, I paint from dark to light, generally.
OK.
I would paint all that black, and then I would add the detail onto it.
I think I better let you crack on
Thank
before
you.
too much more changes.
Out on the pier, our Wildcard artists are well underway with their seaside scenes, under the watchful eye of the judges.
They look ominous, those buildings. It's good.
The view is being brought to life in oils, spray paint, and even ceramics.
It's so detailed, and it's so precise. What you use,
It's quite simple, really.
oh, it's very satisfying, isn't it?
It is. Would you like to have a go?
Oh, lovely. Yes, I'll have a go. I done it.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, and it cuts very clear. But this is very original. I've not seen this before, so I'm going to keep an eye on what goes on.
Have you got anyone here supporting you today?
I've got my boyfriend Eddie somewhere.
Where has he gone? Why isn't he here giving you hot drinks and massages?
Well, he was here early doing that, but now I think he's probably just gone to the car to keep warm.
bleeding freezing.
It's really cold.
Almost halfway through the competition, and our landscapes are beginning to take shape.
It needs so much more because at the moment it's sort of just a load of random bits of fabrics of weird shapes that probably wouldn't mean a lot to look at.
I'm a lot calmer now, so I'm hoping my hand will be a lot more confident.
I'm not totally convinced, so I might try another one and just see how that's going.
I'm quite happy with a few small bits here and there.
On the Kentish coast, the clouds are starting to lift, and our artists have a new set of challenges on their hands.
How I normally work is if the weather changes, I'll go away and come back another day when it's similar weather. So in this sort of circumstances, I can't do that.
I've still got the morning sky. I've stuck with that, yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy with that.
British weather is non-predictable. We'll see how it works out.
We thought the sun might come out halfway through the day. It's getting brighter.
I'm amazed, actually. It has really brightened up.
Jen, she started really, really quickly with the most fantastic sky. It was heavy, sensual, and it was done with the most limited amount of paint.
Katie seems to have a lot to do.
Yeah, the kind of practice that she has to be very carefully conceived. So now she's having to work out what her shortcuts will be.
So Paul picked for his submission a very unusual subject and made it interesting. How's he getting on today?
He started with a fantastic underdrawing with the paintbrush, and he's framed the harbour wall and the building on it in a really subtle, beautiful and honest way, and he hasn't over-romanticised it.
Krina, she's completed, she says, 3 paintings.
I think they're beautiful. The paint is luscious. They're lovely accidents where beautiful colours are bleeding out of the back of the brush, and it's gestural and it's yummy. And I look out here and I don't know what she's looking at.
Yeah.
Lynn seems to be having a better time.
I'm surprised that she starts with these bright colours. The process is get that colour down, let that tell a story, and then wash it out. So she's got to put this painting through the wash and peel away all that colour.
I don't want her to go too far. I think it's beautiful. There's a sort of graphic clarity to her composition. It's very crisp.
So it's all to look forward to.
Yeah.
The whole process for me is one of looking all the time. The point at which I stop is when I feel like the whole thing starts to pull together.
The boat's moved a crazy amount. I'm just going to make it up.
I've just got to the point where I'm happy with the structure and it's now time to make it sit within its water.
Jen, one question.
Yep.
Feels like the sun's coming out.
The sun has come out.
What to do?
I've decided to stay with the morning sky.
Right, OK. What are you going to do with the rest of your time? You've got about an hour and a half left, I think?
I'm going to mess with the buildings and maybe some detail on the beach here on the right-hand side.
But I know I won't be looking for the sun in your picture.
You won't find the sun in my picture, no.
Resistance.
Yes.
With the clock ticking, it's time to start finessing the details.
Lynn, it's nearly the end of the day. We've got long to go.
Yeah.
Tell me
Boats.
where you are worried about and what you need to do.
Boats. I've got to make them sit in the water and I have not
How do you do that? How do you make a boat sit in the water?
It's the way you paint them. It's the
way you paint them.
It's the way you
and on
paint
that
them,
bombshell, Lynn, now what do you have to do to make them look like they sit in the water?
OK, so I need to put some shadows in. That's my task for the last
Well, there's
half
not long
an hour.
left. I'll leave
know.
you to it.
Thank you.
Viking Bay is in Broadstairs, where one of our most beloved writers was as enchanted with the scenery as our artists are.
Sky, sea, beach and village lie as still before us as if they were sitting for a picture.
In 1837, a young Charles Dickens came to the sleepy hamlet of Broadstairs for the summer.
He continued to come back here with all his children so that they could spend their earliest childhood holidays here. And he was quite a hands-on father, so it was a place that became very, very special to him.
It was here that the great writer could dream like a giant. He was invigorated by the beauty of the bay and inspired by his neighbours, one of whom even crops up in his novel David Copperfield.
The character of Betsy Trotwood was something that just landed in his lap. He says that he looked out of his window one morning and saw this respectable lady rush out of this front door with a hearth brush in her hand and start to hit the donkey boys bringing donkeys over her meadow.
By the 1840s, Dickens had found fame. He'd become the nation's favourite writer. And Broadstairs became something of a retreat. But as time passed, the area began to change.
Suddenly it was surrounded by tourists. The irony of this is people had discovered that Charles Dickens spent his holiday there, so he was the reason that the town became crowded, and he hated it.
Dickens' love affair with Broadstairs was at an end. In 1851, he decamped for his summers to Boulogne, but not before writing an ode to these once beloved Kentish shores.
All the sea is sparkling, heaving, swelling up with life and beauty this bright morning. This afternoon, Viking Bay has drawn in the crowds. And there are some familiar faces checking in and offering support.
Hi, Mum. How's it going? Yeah, good. We're number 3. Quite happy with this one, I think.
How's it going? According to plan?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, it's looking
Sort of.
good. It's nice and
Well,
colourful.
I wanted to get some colour on, so I've got some colour on.
Confidence levels, scale of 0 to 10. 6.
All right, I'll do that.
It's a harsh sea out there. The sky's been fairly aggressive.
The others are terrible.
Good to know, thank you.
For our fabric artist, the process gets more elaborate as the day wears on.
Katie, up until now, I've just seen you wrestling with lots of fabrics, but I've just walked in and you seem to already have a scene here. How have you got to this point?
I started off with a sketch onto the canvas, and then I traced that. I'm hoping to put in some stitching and detail, but I've spent too long, essentially, on this area there.
So you're telling me that you didn't practice to a 4-hour period?
Oh, I did, but I didn't ever achieve it.
OK. And at the end of the day, will we see you wrap it round something? And
Yes,
show it
that's
to us
the aim
like
again,
that?
yes. So I need to make sure I've got a few minutes at the end to staple it onto a...
You see me off, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, OK, all right then.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Over on the pier, the Wildcard Challenge is drawing to a close, and it's time for the judges to choose their winner.
They've had a wild day up here, the Wildcards.
I mean, they have some of them been complete lunatics, insisting on staying at the far end. There are 2 people using this hot pink.
Yeah.
The woman sitting on the ground with the diptych has really used that some pink.
Yeah.
So it's like, in the middle of that storm earlier on, did they just see pink? What happened?
I think that impressionist impasto putting down a paint, a few of them done it rather well.
I was also quite interested in a man here who was focused on drawing these railings, painting them so beautifully. Lovely, but there's one that has beaten him to it. Congratulations! You're our wildcard winner for today. Well done.
God, thank you so much.
Well done. We love the way in which you started with that fantastic pink ground. It was great over the day. Well done.
I love painting out of doors when I can, and I don't often find a lot of time to do it. And to come out top, it's not really sunk in yet. It's a little bit surreal.
Well done, well done.
Lisa Takahashi will join the other wildcard winners, all vying for a place in the semi-final.
Back on the beach, our artists are nearing the end of their 3rd hour.
Have you enjoyed today? Yeah, I've really loved it. Yeah, I'm starting to feel a bit worn out now. I think I've drank too much coffee.
You drank too much coffee?
And I'm finding getting a bit shaky with some of the lines.
Have you had a look at your competitors?
Yeah, just out of interest.
You've been not doing any sledging or anything?
What's sledging?
Sledging is, you know, like cricketers do when they go around telling the opponent they're,
Oh, right,
they're rubbish.
yeah. No.
Try and put them off their game.
No, hardly spoke to anybody. Try not to do that.
You don't look like that kind of guy.
No, no.
Well, at least I've started some stitching, but I'm panicking a bit.
Time pressure is definitely on, so I'm trying not to get too panicked. I can see quite a lot, though, that is starting to panic me.
Do you know what? I don't even know. I got to a point where I thought, what am I doing?
At Viking Bay in Kent, our artists are nearing the end of their 4-hour challenge.
I need some glue. Glue. That's as good as I'm going to give you. Help!
What is it?
I just flicked.
Ink. Oh, that's okay. We like a nice little abstract passage.
Artists, you have 1 minute left.
It is a little more colourful than I perhaps would have liked, but hey, it is what it is.
Artists, cease working. Your time is up.
Put down your materials. Step away from your paintings.
All right, Gary, mate.
For our artists, the hard part is over, and it's time for the judges to deliberate over their creations.
I was really happy with the composition that Jen chose today.
There's something rather wonderful about not trying to make it pretty or do anything more with it. And I think it's kind of the purity of vision.
It's got this great, mysterious, broody morning sky, and she was really clever not to touch it. Well, Gary delivered some really interesting painting. I particularly like this use of the diagonal through the composition.
I think it's very powerful. I think it seems very busy to me. Charlotte takes me back to the dense imagination of mark making, of her submission.
I wonder whether or not she actually bit off a bit more than she could chew, because I would have been quite happy if she'd had focused maybe just on even a quarter of this.
I think Barry's trying to be all things to all people. You know, it's like he wasn't bothered about the weather, whether it was sunny, whether it wasn't, whether people were there, whether they weren't. And actually, that little section with the graffitied wall is absolutely precious.
I have to say, that wall was one of my favourite bits of painting in any landscape programme we've made. It's so good. We welcome someone into the show who's a thoroughly abstract artist, and we have to understand that what they're painting is a sort of an evocation, an atmosphere. I don't know that it's enough about this place. Paul stuck to the overcast weather we had this morning, and it's a kind of entirely overcast painting, isn't it?
The more I look at this, the more I like it. That liquidity of the water and the way the waves and the movements take you into the distance, I mean, there are beautiful tones in there. I'm actually quite flabbergasted at how much Katie managed to get done. She must be really proud of herself because she's never tried to do 4 hours before. This is amazing.
You know, the thread work, the frothy white water in her hands, this is a great new way of describing it.
I really like Lynn's clarity of mark and vision and the crispness of the whole image and the sense she's been able to get of this harbour wall and the building on it. It feels almost like an island we're looking at.
They now have the difficult task of narrowing 8 down to 3.
I mean, these two are really fun. I love them, but I don't really feel like I want to take them to the next level.
One of them is growing on me in its subtlety, actually.
Yeah, so we'll take this one.
Yeah.
This one, and then...
Those two?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Artists, thank you for joining us here at Viking Bay and to let us watch your talent emerging.
However, we've reached the moment where the judges have selected 3 artists to go through to the shortlist for today's heat. The first artist the judges have selected is Jen Orpin.
The second artist is Paul Alcock.
The third artist to make the shortlist is Lynn Wixon.
Our commiseration to those of you who didn't quite make it, but thank you very much for all your efforts. It's been a delight to watch.
Well done, thanks very much.
Yeah, it was really, really good first.
Yeah, you're slightly disappointed, but you're chuffed for the ones who won. Obviously, you wanted to get through, but you don't.
Only one artist can go through to the semi-final. So the judges now consider today's work alongside their submissions.
All three of these artists got under the skin of a sort of harbour scene.
Well, Jen's, it's a very clean landscape she's painted today.
There's a clever choice of narrative in the submission, and actually she did the same thing today. She made a really, really intelligent decision to stick with the feeling of this morning and see it through this afternoon.
But there's a perversity to her as well. I think, she's taken a small subject and really made it monumental. And here she's taken a grand scale and sort of pushed them back.
So Paul gave us a car on a double yellow line, a sort of quite unprepossessing subject, but made it interesting. Has he achieved the same thing today?
This is not the glamorous bit of the seaside, this is not the fun bit, but it's really real.
What we found so incredible about his submission is in its blandness, with these little gems of painting and the invention. As you look at the scene today, that boat in the foreground and the water that it's sitting on is just sublime. This painting whispers.
Lynn's picked a very similar view to Paul, but handled it differently.
The way she frames everything with such delicacy, and it's almost suggestion, is very effective.
It's quite interesting seeing both the paintings together, that there is a continuity in those vertical lines, the clean marks.
A huge part of the challenge of today was to say, you're going to have to focus and edit because you do have a time constraint. And I think all three of these artists have been really successful in doing that.
Jen, Paul, Lynn, well, you made it through to the shortlist, but of course only one can go forward to the semi-final, and the judges have made their decision.
The artist they have selected is Paul Alcock.
Congratulations, congratulations, Paul, well done.
I'm in shock, I think. Can't quite believe it. It feels very unreal. Tonight, it's going to be driving home, really, and a little celebration when we get there. Yeah.
Paul embodies the notion of his work. What we got was a consistency of mood, a consistency of style, a consistency of palette.
It's rare. You find people painting in traditional manner and they go all romantic on it. Paul doesn't do that. He's just a master painter, really, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does going forward.